All right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to 3 Buck Theater. My name, of course, is Matt Jarbo, and today is the 25th of January, 2018. And man, there is a lot to talk about today. There's so much to talk about today. I feel like at first I started looking at the news today, and it was just like not much. It was just like, it's going to be a light day. And then, of course, noon hits, and the news cycles start coming back in again. You start seeing other stuff, and you're like, oh, fun. Here we are, another full day of everything. And I just want to jump right into it today. So essentially, here's how things are going to work out. I'm going to go through the news stories. I want you guys to just save your questions for the end. We'll go through there. Super chats do get priority if that is how you guys want to play it. If not, that's cool too. And we'll definitely have ourselves a lot of fun on today's stuff because there is at least 6 stories to go through. If not seventh, I think I might have a 7th on here, but there's so freaking much. Hollywood doesn't stop, even in January, especially when the biggest news is mostly superhero stuff. A lot of it is mostly superhero stuff. So definitely going to get into that. So first things first, let's jump into some bright news. This is interesting here because it's there is a big disconnect, I think, between fans and critics of Netflix's film Bright. Now, personally, I freaking loved it, right? I loved it. I thought the world was good, if not a little bit underdeveloped or in terms of what they showed us in the movie. I know they've since released a featurette giving us a bit more background into the lore, but this was a big success for them. I mean, looking here just at the Rotten Tomatoes, we see that it has a critical rating of 26%. But 86% audience score. Now, some could argue that the audience score means nothing and that this means, it's just stupid. But no, this has a lot to do with it. A lot of people watched it. The estimated 11.3 million people watched it in the opening weekend, which would have equated to around a roughly $90 million opening is what the estimates were. Never mind the fact that the movie itself had about a $90 million budget, and they knew what they were going to have going into it. They already greenlit a sequel. The sequel is going to be written and directed by David Ayer. Unfortunately, no Max Landis because of the allegations made against him. But ultimately, Bright was a success, and it's something that Netflix really wanted. This was them straight up competing with the studio system because there was a bidding war for this movie. They actually ended up acquiring the script for $3 million, brought in Will Smith, brought in Joel Edgerton. I mean, Will Smith in a Netflix movie? That should not be a thing. Will Smith is a bona fide movie star. And the thing is, Reed Hastings knows that. So when he says here that critics are disconnected from mass appeal, he's not wrong, actually. In the case of, let's say, Star Trek Discovery, where you have a high critical rating and a low audience score, or the Orville, where it's the exact opposite, low critical rating, high audience score, we're seeing a larger and larger disconnect between studios, or movies, or TV shows, and critics, I should say. Now, critics will come out there and they're going to be like, beat their chest to try to maintain their relevance. And the truth of the matter is, I honestly feel this way. And if you are a film critic that comes across this video, I'm sorry. Most of you are cynical and just really don't like movies anymore. I think that. I do think that. I think a lot of critics out there simply just don't like movies. They like entertainment, they like the industry, but they just don't like watching anything. And that could be from the fact that they have just watched so much bad stuff over the years that everything is bad, right? And that's what it feels like to me. But here's the truth. I worked at a movie theater, many movie theaters, over the course of about 14 years. I've seen more bad movies multiple times than I should. So when I approach a film, I look at it from the best possible perspective. Was I entertained? And if that is the case, then I am happy. Like last night, I watched Geostorm, a movie that was panned by critics, made no money in the box office. I loved every second of it because I saw the inherent value for what was there. And that's just me. That maybe isn't you. And maybe I'm just being too light on certain things. That's how I view it. Anyway, so it says here that Netflix has come out fighting following the critical backlash against its big budget Will Smith blockbuster Bright. Whilst many people have watched the movie that was penned by Max Landis and directed by David Ayer, it's come in for some fierce criticism. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, though, may have found the culprits, it's movie critics. And we saw a lot of this, by the way, in 2016, 2017. Brett Ratner was calling out movie critics. A lot of other people are calling out critics for how they respond to stuff. I mean, just real quick, look at the backlash. Fans versus critics, Ghostbusters 2016. Or fans versus critics, Star Wars The Last Jedi, right? Like, movie critics will attack something for whatever reason, or they'll defend something to the death even though they know it's horrible. Like, they keep to their own clique like everyone else does. And it's pretty apparent, especially in this industry. Now, Reed Hastings says here, the critics are pretty disconnected from mass appeal. Most of the critical reviews you read are English language, just the United States. He said that critics are an important part of the artistic process, but are pretty disconnected from the commercial prospects of a film. Now, what he's referring to there ultimately are how a movie is perceived in another culture, in another language, in other countries. And that's true. Now, one of the things that I would argue critics are right about is, let's say, for example, Independence Day Resurgence is just a good example, right? The movie, I had a lot of fun with it because I liked Independence Day. I like big disaster porn films, and especially when Roland Emmerich is at the helm. But that being said, when this happened, a lot of people were commenting on the jokes. The humor was extremely juvenile, was extremely, like, I don't want to say lazy, but it felt that way, right? Ultimately, it felt that way. And this is the sad thing, is they have to take a lot of this humor, take a lot of these jokes, and then they have to kind of dumb them down for international audiences. Now, unfortunately, this is a bit of a double-sided sword, or double-edged sword. Ultimately, what happens here is you've got translation, and just from across different cultures and different languages, you're trying to convey a joke in a way that will be universally understood. Oftentimes, that's kind of basement level bottom humor. And when you have to, when you're doing that in America, it comes across as stupid. When you do that aimed at international audiences, it comes across as, well, almost like a slap in the face. So audiences, can culturally understand, but these movies are trying to do so in a way that is easy, right? They're trying to make it as easy for them as possible to get to have the biggest reach across the board. And unfortunately, that tends to have a real big negative impact. Anyway, Reed here does go on to say that if people watching this movie and loving it, or if people are watching the movie and loving it, that's the measurement of success. And if the critics get it behind it or don't, that's a select group of social media influencers talking to a specific audience. And that's kind of it's a jab. It's a huge jab, because it's also a true jab. All right. So let me tell you guys real quick 2 cases of how you know for a fact that movie bloggers, and even, look, this applies to people like myself even, don't have the impact that they feel that they do. I don't feel like I have the impact that or anything else, but ultimately, this is what they do. You had 2012's Dread and 2013's Pacific Rim. So Dread, if you haven't seen it, you are missing out on one of the best films. Like, literally, it's a 10 out of 10 in my book. And the thing is, I'm not the only one to feel that way. There are a lot of people who feel that way, but the movie made no money in theaters. Now, Dread came out. The movie tanked its opening weekend. Film critics went out there the next week, and I mean, they wrote article after article after article trying to get people to go see this movie, trying to get people to go see it in the theater. Now, I feel blessed, hashtag, that I got to go see it in 3D, because it was the only way I could see it, and the 3D made the movie, in my opinion. And I normally hate 3D. So even though I'm telling people to go see it, it's awesome, this is a good movie, these critics tried and tried and tried. Numbers didn't have any bit of an increase the next week. It wasn't until the movie hit home video and positive word of mouth came out that we ended up actually having a cult following for the film. But by then it was almost too late, and so getting a sequel is off the table. Getting a TV show, maybe. Now, the other case for that is Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim, 2013's Guillermo del Toro kaiju versus big mech battle movie. Awesome film. Awesome film. Good visual effects. A lot of fun. Just didn't reach with the audience. And we're talking mid-July, man. This should have had a huge impact. Nothing, right? Critics did the exact same thing. Sat out there very much trying to get these people, get people to watch it, write all these puff piece articles, beg their audiences to go see it. Nothing. That's just a fact. That is the cold hard truth of where we find ourselves when it comes to these types of movies. Is ultimately these critics, they don't have the pull, the weight, or the impact that they feel like they should. And the reason why they feel like they should is because they do garner large followings on social media, and a lot of times these people are yes men. I'm just going to be honest there. People who don't ever want to be critical of these guys and their ego. And then when you get a big pushback on stuff like Ghostbusters or The Last Jedi, they get rattled. They get a little bit rattled. They get a little bit shook. They can't handle it, so they use their platform to push back, therefore further causing a divide. Now, my particular take on all this is I tend to go into every movie with the best intentions. I went into Ghostbusters 2016 with the best intentions. I tried. I so tried. It just didn't work. But I went into Bright with the same thing. I ended up loving Bright. Geostorm last night. I love Geostorm. It's just, you can like movies. It's okay to like movies. And that is one of the biggest problems when it comes to these critics, is they basically are trying to act like the gatekeepers of what is good. And you can like something or not like something. I'm not trying to pressure you one way or the other. But ultimately, that's a lot of what it boils down to. And sadly, this is just where we end up. And it's, you know what, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Those kind of pundits, their days are numbered, because you can only push negativity so far. And eventually you realize that you don't have as much of an impact as you want to have, and people are going to stop coming, and ad dollars are going to dry up. And they're already seeing that with some other websites and the news front. It's eventually going to hit enthusiast press too. So yeah, there's a lot going on there with that. Rant done on that one, man. I've also, I mean, the whole Gamergate thing too. I had a bit of a you know, I was battling those guys quite a bit over all that too. so there's that. All right, let's here's another good one here. So the New Mutants got dropped back to next year. Supposed to come out April. Now they're pushing it back to like what, January, February of 2019. A movie that was already shot, already in the can, trailers were already out, marketing was already being done. What was going on with this movie? Well, it turns out that not only did it get dropped back 10 months, it's also now PG-13, which is a shame. This was supposed to be a hard R horror X-Men movie, right? This is supposed to be that thing. People were excited for this. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm just losing interest left and right. Now, it says that so far 2018 has not been kind to New Mutants and their fan base. The Fox Marvel film got pushed from its previous release date of April 13th to February 22nd. So yeah, that is 10 months. Now, for those of you who are hoping that the movie, which was a real horror story slant, would be in the vein of mature R-rated Marvel Comics adaptations like Deadpool and Logan, no. According to writer-director Josh Boone, he confirmed that the film will be PG-13, though he was quick to stress that they're pushing that limit about as far out as they can. However, the movie will be different from previous mutant-focused films in other ways too, which Boone teases in the recent interview. So basically he says, like, this will be the hardest PG-13 movie ever made. I mean, we pushed it. The horror is pretty dark, but there's also an emotional core. If I can scare you and make you cry, that's the goal. And the thing with that is, though, that's a problem. I'm not saying I'm not going to go see the movie. Obviously, I want to go see the movie. But let's kind of take this for what it is for a second. What you've got is Josh Boone. Pretty much, well, this isn't Josh Boone. This is a studio call. This is a studio call because of the Disney merger. I can think of no other explanation for it. They, when it comes to, let's say, Logan and Deadpool, they took chances, especially with Deadpool, an R-rated comic book movie in the current climate. Are you kidding me? Especially one off of almost a failed property from 2009. That was a big push. But a $55 million budget on Deadpool got them over $800 million return just in box office. And Deadpool 2 is set to probably, I would argue, if I'm being truthfully honest here, Deadpool 2 has it, if it's good enough, has it in it to cross the $1 billion mark. I do. I think so. I really think so, which is one of the reasons why I don't think Bob Iger will mess with that. But Logan was the end of that trilogy, and just such a wonderful movie. I wish it would have gotten Best Picture nomination, but I'll take the Best Adapted Screenplay because that shows the Academy is at least paying attention to an extent. But that being said, Logan is a movie that needed to be rated R, and they did a great job with it being rated R. But the New Mutants is a new franchise, right? And it's one that they are clearly, I think, a little bit unsure of. From what I understand, there's been some test screenings on the film and it hasn't done very well, so they're going to go back and reshoot some stuff. You wouldn't push a movie back 10 months unless that's nearing the end. That's what, 3 months away from release at this point, unless there was clearly problems with it and they wanted to go back and fix it. So that's what I think is going to happen. Now, will there be the PG-13 cut and then the ultimate unrated version on home video? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the avenue that we go. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Grace Randolph once made a comment about that, about like how Deadpool should be PG-13 to get in the kids, right? And that got her a lot of flack, but I think what she was trying to say is you do PG-13 in theaters, but you do unrated at home. And Fox was doing this for a while, especially back in 2007 with Live Free or Die Hard, the first PG-13 Die Hard movie that everyone was really mad about. Like, why is it PG-13? Should be yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, you know, that kind of thing. And ultimately, they had the PG-13 theatrical cut, and then they released the unrated home cut, which was better in some respects and not as good in other respects. And that was kind of what they were doing, the PG-13 theatrical, the unrated home video. And I felt like that might be a solid middle ground, right? A solid middle ground as a way to keep things moving. Right. But that could happen here. They've done it before, and I could see that happening here. But I feel when it comes to this particular story, ultimately what they want to do is they want to play upon the potential success of this, and especially with the Disney merger and Disney not really wanting to touch a lot of R-rated stuff, even though Bob Iger is kind of hinting at that it might be okay. But it would only be okay if the movie does super well. Right? It would only be okay if the movie pulls in over $500 million. But if it doesn't do that, then PG-13 and a moderate success is what they're going to aim for, which ultimately is sad. Because you would really like there to be a lot more going on with this, mature themes in horror in comic book films. But Marvel has homogenized the game, and as much as I love Marvel movies, and as much as I always go and see them, I very much found both Deadpool and Logan refreshing, and I wanted to see that continued with the New Mutants. So yeah, that's unfortunate. All right, so Black Panther, man, Black Panther is coming up, and they're talking a lot of good things for Black Panther. You're talking about $120 million opening weekend. You're talking like it's gonna beat Deadpool apparently. Like that's the whole thing they're going for right now. They're thinking Black Panther is just going to own everything when it comes out in a couple weeks, and they're probably not wrong. This movie looks amazing. Right, and even though you have a number of people out there that are trying to push identity politics and culture war nonsense through this film, they're trying to use it as a platform in order to get controversy going so they can then get more clicks and views on their websites. The average Marvel fan and the average moviegoer and the average fan of comic movies is going to look at this and think, hell yeah, because it looks good. But apparently, Marvel is already thinking ahead because they want a lot of Black Panther sequels and spin-offs, according to this report in MovieWeb. So it says that Black Panther is one of the most anticipated movies of 2018, and a new report suggests there's going to be a lot of sequels and spin-offs in coming years, which was only set 2 months into the production of the movie, according to producer Nate Moore. Moore revealed that all the pieces for the project fell into place once Ryan Coogler signed on to direct, noting that Marvel wasn't sure about the actors they could get until the Creed director came on board. Putting together an all-star cast, it's been reported that Coogler wants to do something special for Black Panther, and by the looks of things, he has succeeded. And if you look at just the cast of Black Panther, they have got so many freaking good actors in that movie. And that is going to be one of the things that I think really, really, really sets it up for success. And that is going to keep it going. Now, Screen Rant reports that the excitement around Black Panther ramped up as soon as Coogler stepped in to helm the project. Producer Nate Moore revealed that once the cast was locked in, that the true potential of the franchise became evident. leading to the idea of sequels and spin-offs. He says here, we've always tried to find room for faces that look like everybody and not just homogenous casting. Panther obviously is a big swing that we hope to continue throughout many sequels and take some of these characters and put them in other franchises, because I do think there's a way to cross-pollinate in an interesting way. Now, if anything, Marvel really does like the cross-pollination, right? They do. They do. And we already saw that with, like it says here, Captain America Civil War had T'Challa showing up, as well as, I forget the actress who was his bodyguard, and everything else, and I'm sure she'll be in this one as well. Now, the thing is, how are they going to cross-pollinate this, right? How are they going to cross-pollinate? Well, they already did this. Again, the article goes on to talk about, like, Doctor Strange, and how Doctor Strange made a decent cameo in Thor, right? And that was a good cameo, and that kind of like helped establish Strange and gave us another viewing of him leading into Infinity War. And of course, we're going to see T'Challa and probably everyone else in this image right here. They're going to be popping up in Infinity War 1 and 2, or whatever, Infinity War and Avengers 4. So what are they going to do? Well, here's my theory on this one. The spin-offs, this is what I think is going to happen. And this is a far-off speculation, so please take it with an absolute grain of salt. But what I anticipate would happen is with Disney getting this new streaming service, they're going to want to compete with Netflix. Netflix already knows this. Reed Hastings is kind of like, you know, whatever, man, I don't even care, not even gonna bother me. But if they start making Marvel Studio movies and putting them on the service, giving us these spin-offs, and I'm talking like lower budget, we're talking like less than 100 million or maybe even 50 million. Disney has not only ILM, Skywalker Sound, I mean, they've got the in-house ability to do this at cost. And they could create a whole bunch of smaller movies and smaller properties that have the ability to go out on their streaming service, very similar to the Netflix Marvel series, and give us those. That is probably what they're going to do. And they've already talked about that a little bit. We've already kind of gotten a bit of a hint of that, where that's going to be something that's going to be contained. And now you bring in like the X-Men the X-Men and Fantastic Four and everything else they're bringing into it. This is where you're going to see the spin-offs. This is where you're going to see a lot of the cross-pollination. And once they're all under the same house and they're all basically going to be working off of going into movies and also on that streaming service, it's going to get wild. That's my take on it. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they want to do when it comes to these kind of spin-offs. Black Panther is a well-beloved franchise, not, you know, by people of all races and creeds and religions and genders and so on and so forth. The adventures of T'Challa and Wakanda are some that have been going on for years, and people freaking love it. And I think that if done correctly, with a large enough cast of recognizable actors that are willing to do the 9-movie contract, which at this point, we don't even know how many movies these guys signed on to when they did their contract. Keep in mind that Sam Jackson and Sebastian Stan both signed a 9-movie deal. Okay, Chris Hemsworth did 3 Thor movies and 4 Avenger movies before his contract was over. Same with Chris Evans. So we know that Disney signs these people to really long contracts, and so that's what I think is going to happen there. However, we won't know about anything for a while. And when we do, of course, I'll be, you know, telling you guys all about it. I got good hopes. I got good hopes on that one. I think the way things are going, they're really going to like just hammer it all home and give it a home in digital space, and I think it's gonna be pretty cool. So yeah, let's jump over to the to really the big news of the day. What we got here is our first look at Captain Marvel, according to page 6. This is some behind-the-scenes photos that have popped up over on page 6 from her shot. Now, this has been causing a bit of controversy, especially if you look at these the shots here, full body shot, her in a green suit, and people are going, wait a minute, I'm in Newton Bitta. That's not what she looks like. That's not at all what she looks like. How did this happen? Well, I mean, this is an origin movie set in the 1990s. Clearly, the outfit here is it looks pretty close to her normal attire, but it's missing the red and the blue, or at least the red, and everything else. So according to Screen Rant, they've been talking about this here, and they have an article, Why Brie Larson's Costume is Green. Now it says, even for those who have been reading the Captain Marvel comics for years, the history of Carol Danvers can be a bit confusing. We've already explained how Jude Law's Marvel ties into Captain Marvel, but it's worth touching on a few points to explain the green suit. When the Kree warrior Marvel originally came to Earth, he donned a green and white suit and used the name Captain Marvel. Eventually, he upgraded to the more familiar red and blue costume with the gold star, which would serve as inspiration to Carol when she gained similar abilities. So already kind of establishing that, we can see essentially that this is probably going to be either Marvel's suit or a Kree suit. Now, it goes on to say that over time, Carol adopted her black and gold suit as she wore for most of her time as Miss Marvel, but then she returned to a costume inspired by Marvel when she took his mantle, as he'd been dead for years. There's never any doubt that Carol would wear the same version of the modern suit in the MCU, but it's a safe bet that Marvel would tweak it in some way to make it look good in real life. Interestingly, the suit revealed today is just like you'd expect an MCU version of the Captain Marvel costume to appear, only with a different color scheme. Now, it goes on to say here that the couple reasons why Carol might be in this green costume. The simplest explanation is that she snags it from a Kree soldier after gaining her power. It's hard to tell what Marvel will change or condense when it comes to Captain Marvel's origins, but we do know that the Kree Skull War is a big part of the movie. As such, there's a chance that Carol will gain her powers during the conflict and then grab the uniform from a fallen Kree warrior as she heads in the battle. The other big possibility is that we're seeing Marvel's original suit, which gets handed down to Carol. And that's kind of what it feels like. To me, just looking at this right here, like, I can't help. I'm not big on Captain Marvel of who she was, but it kind of feels like this is like the Green Lantern Corps. Like, this is their version of it, essentially. I don't know why that's like the vibe I'm getting. And they wanted it to be a realistic, tangible suit. And so it's possible that, yeah, she's going to change the color scheme of it once she gains her powers and becomes Captain Marvel. But this is just something she's going to wear as kind of a setup for you know, getting into it. It's kind of like Deadpool when they went through the whole montage of him trying to develop his costume. And at one point he was just wearing like a white hoodie with a mask on, you know, and everything else leading into obviously like the I'm wearing a red suit so no one can see me bleed sort of thing. And we could get a bit out of this. So I don't know necessarily how it's all going to tie together, but I do think that Screen Rant is onto something here when talking about the possibility of it and how it ties into the greater aspect of the film, even though Screen Rant in and of itself ultimately is not the most reliable source of information. You know, they tend to put out a whole bunch of clickbait. They tend to put out a whole bunch of nonsense. But I think they did pretty good here. And again, once we know more about this, I'm sure we're going to see at least, I don't know if we're going to get a cameo of Carol Danvers in Infinity War. I know she was on set. I don't know if it's going to be in this one or the next one, but the next one comes out next year. So, I mean, obviously, there's going to be some large tie-ins. They want to make this a big splash. And I'm sure the closer we get to the release of Infinity War, the more about Captain Marvel we will get to see as a whole. And that's going to be pretty cool once we finally do. I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that one. All right. John Cena as Duke Nukem. This is a story that came out a couple days ago, and it was on the docket to be talked about, and then I kept forgetting, which is weird because I'm a pretty big Duke Nukem fan. I'm a child of the 90s, man. I'm a child of the 90s. My job when I was a kid was to play as many video games as possible. So I played a lot of Commander Keen and a lot of Duke Nukem. But it wasn't until Duke Nukem 3D that, oh man, hoo boy, that game, oh man, I felt embarrassed to play that game sometimes simply because of like the nudity in it. I was all like, oh, well, I mean, they had pasties on, but I was like throwing bills at them strippers because I was a teenager. I had hormones. Anyway, John Cena in talks to star as Duke Nukem. If anyone could do it, if anyone in Hollywood could, I think, play that role, I think John Cena is probably the best. I've seen some people suggest like The Rock, and like, no, because The Rock wouldn't be Duke Nukem, right? The Rock would be Dwayne Johnson as Duke Nukem as The Rock is what it would be, and I think Cena could probably play the part pretty well. I think for comedic chops. There was Trainwreck he was in, the Judd Apatow movie, which is like comedy drama. But then also with Blockers coming out here pretty soon, I think that will be an opportunity for us to see him as a comedy actor and see how he does. It says John Cena is getting ready to shoot up some aliens. The wrestler turned actor is in negotiations to star in Duke Nukem, a big screen adaptation set up at Paramount of the popular video game franchise, featuring a politically incorrect action hero. Yeah, it's been 6 years since Duke Nukem Forever was released, and that game got a lot of flack when it came out. Like, that game got a great deal of flack when it came out, and honestly, I really liked it. I had more fun playing Duke Nukem Forever than I did Portal 2, which to some is sacrilege. I understand that, but at the same time, I just really seem to like it. Now it says here, Platinum Dunes, a company run by Michael Bay, Andrew Foreman, Brad Fuller, will produce. Crap, Michael Bay's on it. Okay, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe that's not so bad. The first Turtles movie, Michael Bay was a producer on, and the first Turtles movie was pretty boss. I liked it. I haven't seen Out of the Shadows. I need to, but I haven't seen it yet. No director is on board at this stage. A search for a writer will begin soon to develop a script for what is intended to be a starring vehicle for Cena. How would you even make how would they even do the script? What would you do in that one? I don't even know what kind of story they would tell. I mean, the story it'd be just him killing aliens and trying to get a blowjob, essentially. The Nukem video games follows a muscular adventure. The muscular adventures of the titular protagonist, who is initially a mashup of action hero tropes. The cigar-chomping figure has been fighting aliens in order to save planet Earth since 1991, when the first game was released. The project was previously set up at Dimension Films, but after the rights lapsed, Paramount picked them up from Gearbox Software, the company behind the game. Gearbox. The thing is, part of me doesn't want this to exist simply because I don't want Randy Pitchford to get anything. I don't want him to have any bit of success. But at the same time, I like Duke Nukem, so I'd be okay to watch it. Platinum Dunes is one of the companies behind the Purge action franchise and has produced the Ninja Turtle movies for Paramount. It has next the John Krasinski directed horror movie A Quiet Place, which looks like an interesting film. Cena has quietly made Paramount his de facto movie home, having appeared in the studio's Daddy's Home 2, which grossed over $100 million domestic. He's also set to appear in Bumblebee, the studio's Transformers spinoff, which Bay produced. Now, here's the thing. They would probably try to make this movie PG-13. I don't even want to say it. I don't even want to say it out loud. That's horrible. I don't even want to say it. PG-13, Duke Nukem? No. Gotta be hard R, man. It's gotta be hard R. It's gotta be like Ash versus Evil Dead levels of blood. Just buckets of blood and slime and goo and pee and poo and probably a little bit of jism just for good taste. But no, seriously, like, this is nothing but violence incarnate, and that's okay. That's okay. So I'm really wondering how they're going to do it. Are they going to take the story from Duke Nukem Forever and just have it be like, pig aliens come to Earth and it just ends up taking over, and Duke has to fight his way to the alien mothership and take it out? That seems like the most standard, straightforward adventure. Or ultimately, they're probably going to play on the damsel and the stress trope, I would argue. Duke's girlfriend is captured, or some cheerleaders he was trying to bone was captured. And that's his whole thing, to go back and get him back with a whole bunch of one-liners and nudity along the way. I'm really hoping we get a solid movie out of this. I don't know if we are. I just hope that whatever Michael Bay and company come up with, hey, they can now do aliens, by the way. They can now do aliens. That was a big thing with Turtles. They tried to say the Turtles were aliens. They can now, in fact, do aliens, and that's all right. So maybe we'll get something good out of this. I don't know about you. I personally want some hardcore, raunchy bro humor, right? I feel like where we currently are right now in terms of Hollywood and comedies or action comedies is they play it too safe because they don't want to offend. They're afraid of offending people. And to that, man, no, screw that. Duke Nukem is not about playing to your sensibilities. Duke Nukem is not about playing it safe. Let him go crazy. Let him go cray-cray, as the young teens would say, and get us a movie that is so violent, so depraved, so disgusting. It can only have the Duke Nukem name. Of course, it won't make any money, but they'll at least have tried. I would like to see it. I'm on board. I think Cena could pull it off. But they'd have to dub in John St. John's voice after everything. They'd have to dub in after everything. All right, so final story, and we'll get to your questions. Remember, please hold all super chats until the end so I can get to those. Or do them now, and I'll go through them as we go through. All right, Mission Impossible 6 gets an official title and synopsis. That just dropped right before recording of the stream. I don't know about you, but I've been a Mission Impossible fan since 1996 when the first one came out. I've loved the reinvention of the franchise, very similar to how much I've loved the reinvention of the Fast and Furious franchise. The first movie coming across as like a French noir film, almost. Brian De Palma directing it, even going as far as having deaths of characters spoiled in the opening credits scroll of the film. I mean, that was something. Yay, Emilio Estevez. Oh, look, Emilio Estevez is dead in the first, like, 3 minutes of the movie. I mean, we watch his death. It's coming, but it's there. I've never fully understood that choice or why Paramount allowed it to happen, but they did. And at the same time, I've come to peace with it. You know, been 22 years. But that being said, John Woo's Mission Impossible 2, making it this huge action franchise. Number 3 being more of a spy thriller with J.J. Abrams. Number 4 being more of a globe-trotting Bond-esque type adventure from Brad Bird. And then number 5 from Christopher McQuarrie, I think really kind of grounded it as being a solid action franchise, and one that Cruise just loves to do. Just loves to do them. And so he'll do these literally until he's dead, I think. And given the rate at how much he keeps injuring himself while making these movies, it's not far off. And plus, he needs a win. He needs a win. The Mummy tanked. He needs a win. Now, it says that the next chapter in the Mission Impossible title series now has a title. The franchise star Tom Cruise took to Instagram this morning to announce that the highly anticipated movie is titled Mission Impossible Fallout. Cruise shared the image from the movie featuring himself hanging from a helicopter with the caption that reads, "We've upped the ante for the 6th Mission Impossible. I can't wait for you guys to see the movie." That's cool. And sadly, it's not Mission Impossible Fallout, the video game from Bethesda, because that would be so cool. Ethan Hunt traveling the wasteland, taking down Deathclaws and getting the ladies. It practically writes itself, right? That could, you know, IMF fails to stop the nuclear bomb from going off. He goes into a bunker, wakes up 5 years down the road, and it's nothing but cannibals, ghouls, and gigantic ants. You know you want to see it too. Don't even lie. But here's the image of him on the helicopter, again, looking very similar to that shot from Mission Impossible 5, where he is literally strapped onto the plane as it took off, scene that they did, I think, 5 times or something, just to make sure they got it right. I mean, Cruise is in his 50s. He wants to make sure that right now he is doing well, that he is kicking ass and taking names for as long as he can, and I'm okay with that. So it says here that the official synopsis for Mission Impossible Fallout is the best intentions often come back to haunt you. Mission Impossible Fallout finds Ethan Hunt and his IMF team, Alec Baldwin, Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, along with some familiar allies, Rebecca Ferguson, Michelle Monaghan, in a race against time after a mission gone wrong. Henry Cavill, Angela Bassett, and Vanessa Kirby also joined the dynamic cast, with filmmaker Christopher McQuarrie returning to the helm. Now, obviously, we're missing Jeremy Renner out of this. And not Paula Poundstone. What was it? Paula Patton? Is that it? Paula Patton? Whatever. The one from Mission Impossible 4. I mean, but I like though Rebecca Ferguson, Michelle Monaghan. So that was a big thing too that I really liked from the third movie. He was married to Michelle Monaghan. That was a big thing. They had good chemistry, worked out really well together. At the end of the fourth movie, they're divorced because of, you know, what reasons, for being a spy. And then at the end, they're in Seattle, and he is kind of silently stalking her while sitting there drinking coffee with Ving Rhames in his one little cameo appearance for some reason, and then looking at her from a distance. And then, of course, with the fifth movie, Rebecca Ferguson and him had a thing, and now bringing in the ex-wife, really? You're going to have a bit of a love triangle going on, very similar to to Fast and Furious 6. Yeah, 6, right? I'm trying to think of which Fast and Furious had Michelle Rodriguez come back, and then also had the whole thing with Elena. Yeah, that was number 6. I'm a fan. So I'm very curious to see how this whole thing plays out and where it goes, because I really do love the inclusion of Simon Pegg. I've always loved Ving Rhames in the role. Alec Baldwin did a good job. And these things always seem to up it. Now, we're not going to see this movie until it hits theaters July 27th, 2018, which is not too far away. It's not too far away. It's right there in the middle of summer, right there at the peak third week of July, which is essentially kind of like the end of summer, so to speak, unless something big is coming out in August, the first week of August. Usually the third, fourth week of July is the last hurrah. And so if this is taking it, then I'm okay with that. And ultimately, here's the thing. Paramount really does need a win. Paramount absolutely, positively needs a win when it comes to these movies, because if this movie doesn't do well, this is going to be it. This is going to be the final Mission Impossible movie. And maybe it's time, you know, maybe it's time. It's the 6th movie. They never thought that over the course of 22 years, we'd get 6 films. I mean, all things considered, if you think about the fact that it's almost been 20 years since the first Fast and Furious came out, just this, you know, let's you know how bad that's gonna be. I mean, no, seriously, with Fast and Furious, the last one, the next one comes out in 2020, and then the one after that's 2021. So full 20 years to do 10 movies. So those have put out more movies in the short amount of time than Mission Impossible. But I am very excited to see what happens next with the franchise. I've always enjoyed them. They're a lot of fun. They're a total guilty pleasure. And anything Tom Cruise can do in that regard is totally fine with me. All right. There we go. Wow, that was 6 stories in under 40 minutes. That is, yeah, you want the Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2? I do as well, Jack. I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. completely underrated film. Completely underrated movie. All right. If you guys got questions or comments or whatever, start tagging me in the chat because I can read them now. I wanted to run through everything so we can do this for about maybe about 15 minutes of answering questions or talking about some stuff and then go from there. Oh, wait, no, shit. I'll save that one for tomorrow. I had another one. There was one that was hiding in the back. I will save it for tomorrow. It's a Star Wars story. It's a Star Wars one, but I'll save it. Because mostly it's kind of like... I think it's more of me bitching about Star Wars, which apparently gets me in some serious trouble. People don't like it when you yell about Star Wars. Apparently, as I've learned, I keep getting yelled at. All right, let me bring up the thing here. Okay, so you think a lot of critic pessimism comes from the I could do better mentality they sometimes have? Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate. A lot of times there is that mindset that goes into it. You got to think a lot of these people who write about movies also probably write them themselves, and they have a hard drive full of unproduced screenplays that they want to see made. And don't get me wrong, I have a bunch of unproduced screenplays that I want to see made too, but I don't sit there and let that detract me from enjoying a movie. So there's that. Okay, Grady Child says, I need to ask you, after The Last Jedi didn't justify any reason for going back to Rebels versus Empire narrative for Star Wars, should they have done something else? Well, wasn't that The Last Jedi justified anything. It didn't have to justify it. It picked up pretty much at the end of The Force Awakens, which while they dealt a serious blow to the First Order, didn't eliminate the First Order. So there was already still kind of the Empire versus Rebels aspect, or really the First Order versus the Resistance mindset going on. So they just kind of continued it. So they didn't really need to explain it anymore. That was already pretty much implied. Yeah, the new MI title reveal does look suspiciously. Yeah, it does look like it's the same font, isn't it? It looks like that. What am I drinking? I'm drinking an iced tea from McDonald's. So, oh, you want to? I forgot about Henry Cavill's mustache. I forgot about that. I want to see the epic mustache that had to be completely digitally removed from Justice League. That you could totally tell. Let's see. The Force Awakens had this problem for me in The Last Jedi, made it even worse. Galaxy's just gotten worse since Return of the Jedi. A group of Darkseid users run by Kylo Ren-like guy. Well, the thing was, the First Order, it's been 30 years, and so ultimately there's always a balance. That's the whole idea behind Star Wars, that there's always a balance. So in the prequel trilogy, you had the Republic led by the Jedi. The Sith were gaining power in order to raise themselves to meet the Jedi. The Jedi were in fact lowering themselves. If you notice, there was a lot of hubris, a lot of I don't want to say greed, but a lot of like I would say arguably hubris. Listen to what Luke says in The Last Jedi about that, about how they became like very sedentary. They weren't their best selves, so to speak. And I think that as a result of that, their power maybe dwindled, or they weren't paying attention. The Sith were growing, and it's that constant back and forth. So do I think they should do an Old Republic trilogy? Yes. Yes. I absolutely want them to do a freaking. I want them to do an Old Republic trilogy. I think that'd be wonderful. Have I read any Marvel comics? Not recently. Duke Nukem is either going to be hilariously dumb trash or bad dumb trash. Yes, and it will probably bomb in the box office because there will be a huge campaign against it by the critical media, or by the critics out there who don't do shit. Um, by the way, my Duke Nukem Forever comment over Portal 2 physically wounded me. Yeah, I agree, Mason. There's a video I did. I want to say it's on a channel I was running back in 2011. I was trying to do like video game commentary. I think I posted it on Mr. Game Bro at the time. And the reason why I felt Duke Nukem Forever was better than Portal 2 is Portal 2 bored me. Right? Nothing about it was new. I was running through puzzles. Like there wasn't a challenge to Portal 2. I was just so bored by it. You know, where I loved Portal 1 so much, probably because it was so short and contained and condensed. The second one, they just extrapolated and they lost the magic. Whereas Duke Nukem kept me laughing, at least. So, which studio is in worse financial trouble, Paramount or Sony? Paramount. Sony had wins this last year. Paramount didn't really. Captain Marvel rocking that 90s hair. Yeah, very true. Jitterbug. Sorry, the Jitterbug, Sarah. If Duke Nukem, if done right, could be the escapism people are looking for, yeah, possibly. It depends on who the writer is, and it depends on who the director is, and how much of a budget they have, and how much leeway they have. If you want my honest opinion, this is where Netflix should come in and pick it up. I have a feeling Netflix is going to start just making movies to piss off critics. Like all the Adam Sandler movies do very well view-wise on Netflix, and yet they're critically panned. And so that's why Reed Hastings is basically just like this the entire time to critics. You hope that Captain Marvel aims towards Carol Danvers instead of Carol Manvers. Could someone hire Duke Nukem to kill Amy Schumer? That'd be pretty funny. I guarantee something like that would be in the movie. If they go full on. Everything, that will definitely be it. All right. What are my thoughts on XFL 2020? I never watched XFL the first time, so I really don't care. I don't watch football. Hopefully the new Mission Impossible makes the need for Henry Cavill's mustache worth it. I hope so. His mustache, I love the look. It looks very 1940s British spy is how that mustache and the beret looked, and I'm on board with that. So you hope they do. Critics need a good episode of Rustled. I agree, man. I agree. There's I think a lot that's gonna happen with that. I'm sorry, I got to take a look at something here real quick. You hope Disney does something with Alien and Predator if the deal with Fox goes through. The Predator movie this year looks good. Yeah. I would love to see an AVP style cinematic universe done right. But the thing is, though, do you think Disney's really going to do it right? I mean, that's like an honest question. Do you think that they're actually going to push this thing through? Like, do you think they're going to give it the R rating it deserves, or they're going to PG-13 it like Fox did with AVP back in 2004? You know, I mean, that's a realistic thing. What are my thoughts on Ready Player One? Oh, I forgot to mention Ready Player One is coming out a day early now. I don't know how to feel about Ready Player One. Mostly because, like, I'm gonna go see it. I love the book. I love that Spielberg's directing it. I feel he's the one man to do it. At the same time, I'm concerned simply because I don't know how they're going to change the story, or what in the story they're going to change in order to make it fit. And they've already said that they wanted to go back and change everything, or change some stuff. But at the same time, Zach Penn is writing it. Zach Penn wrote the first two X-Men movies, as well as the treatment for Avengers, which served as the basic story for the Avengers, which is why he got a writing credit on the movie. So I'm just saying, I think it could be good. I'm holding out expectations. I just don't know how much I like the mocap, right? I understand that's why they did it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I wish they wouldn't have done it. So you've heard so many people hate Ready Player One. I think a lot of people aren't happy with it, but ultimately, like, they'll be fine. They'll be fine with it. Okay. So I know I think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be okay. I'm right. Do I think Zack Snyder could direct a good live action Dragon Ball movie? Sure. Alien versus Predator versus Terminator. Wasn't it RoboCop versus Terminator, the video game? Didn't they have that in the SNES and the Genesis? Ready Player One looks visually striking, but something does feel off. I agree. Something about it does feel off. More excited for the Aladdin movie than the Mulan movie from Disney. You're pissed off Mulan won't have any of the songs from the original movie. No. Hidden Shadow. The Mulan is a musical. They've said it's going to have music in it. I don't know if it's going to, I'm pretty sure it's going to have I'll Make a Man Out of You, which is an awesome song. I'm actually more excited for the Aladdin one because I like Guy Ritchie as a director quite a bit. So I want to see that. Ready Player One, don't you mean Wreck-'em Ralph, the live action movie? That's great. What are my thoughts on the Armada movie? Are they actually doing Armada as a movie? Because they don't need to. I could not finish Armada. I tried. I got to like the moon base part, you know, like I just got bored with it, so I asked my friend to spoil it for me, and so he told me what it was, and I'm all like, wow, that's super lame. That is super lame. You know, no, I just I'll watch it, but they could change the ending of that. Would I like to see Hellboy versus Spawn? I just want to see Hellboy. Spawn, like, I'm hearing Spawn is going to have like no dialogue in the movie. Like, what the fuck is Todd McFarlane thinking? So there's that. Like, yeah, no, Hidden Shadow. There was that first big thing about that, and then like the next day they came out and said otherwise. Ready Player One is going to rock. I'm hoping it does. I'll probably be covering a lot of that as it gets closer to coming out. Like, there's movies that I'd like to cover a lot more, but like I don't know. I don't just want to do like every little thing. Like, I feel like I'm oversaturating the Star Wars thing, and I'm trying like not to, even though I do have an article that I did want to do about Star Wars, but I'll just do it tomorrow. So there's that. Let's see. Selma Blair is heartbroken over not being able to do Hellboy 3. A lot of people are. Guillermo's vision should have been completed. And Universal, because it went from like New Line did Hellboy 1, Universal did Hellboy 2. They should have made Hellboy work, but the thing is, though, it's the same problem that Bill and Ted are having right now, which there was a new article about that I should probably talk about. But Bill and Ted right now, they're having the same problem as Hellboy 3. People don't want to finance a third movie. They want to be a remake, and that's kind of what happened with Hellboy, is Hellboy went to a remake with David Harbour and Neil Marshall directing. Now, Neil Marshall is a very underrated director, so I very much am curious to see where they're going to take this. But Ron Perlman and Guillermo go together like this. Same with Doug Jones and Guillermo. If Del Toro wins Best Director at the Oscars, you want to give him a grand speech about Kojima? That'd be cool, man. That'd be cool. You hope it's better than 1996's Spawn? I actually like that. I did. No Man's Sky, the movie, you get into theaters and it's a 3-hour loading screen. It wouldn't be a 3-hour loading screen. It'd be 3 hours of just walking around a planet going, God damn it, I need titanium and platinum, and all I have here is iron and carbon. Motherfucker. The new characters out of The Incredibles are in the cool. I actually haven't seen that. Del Toro apparently wanted too big of a budget and the studio didn't want to give him the money. That doesn't surprise me, Hidden Shadow, about that. I would argue, like, again, if I were Del Toro, I would have gone the route of like Veronica Mars and Super Troopers 2, taking that shit to crowdfunding, right? Get a couple $1 million in capital, go, look, we can raise the money. There's obviously interest in this. And then just lower your budget, slice it where you have to. I know he didn't want to, but I mean, you know, Shape of Water, he got financed. Crimson Peak, he got financed. So, will Incredibles 2 have a higher opening than Justice League? Yes. Yeah, no questions. No question about it, man. No question about it. It's going to totally going to have all that. It's seriously it's gonna be much better. It's gonna have a much better opening. Because also, like, it's Incredibles. People want to see it. People really, really, really want to see it. I don't know, man. The way I look at it is, Justice League is going to do well. I mean, sorry, Incredibles is going to do very, very, very well. That's what I want to say. Okay, I lost that. What will happen to Garrison in season 22 of South Park? Do you think he'll remain president? Yeah, he'll be president until Garrison will be president until Trump's no longer president. So HB3, greatest part 3 to never happen. I'm sorry, Mr. Pete Reviews, that would be Half-Life 3. We need a God of War movie. I don't know. I mean, like, God of War is not my cup of tea. Like, I watched the story trailer for the new game, and I was just like, like, I might rent it, you know? So there's that. Let's see here. Hold on. Out of the red, he's putting himself in with Canada. Also, Justin Trudeau dying Boeing. What are you talking about? Oh, about that thing with, yeah, Canada. I don't know, man. Look, the thing is South Park season 2021 or whatever one this was, they screwed up so bad. That season finale was so horrible, was so absolutely terrible that they should not, like, they need, like, it was bad. It was so bad. I can't even tell you how bad it was. So I don't know. I did not care for the season finale. The season was good up until the finale. So there's that. Let's see. Okay. Do I think the DCEU should do a reboot? I think the DCEU should reevaluate where it's at. I think the same thing Marvel should do is, if you want to make these movies, you need to start reining in your budget. You need to treat everything like Deadpool. $50 million budget, get a solid director, a solid writer, a solid actor, put out these movies for $50 million and see what hits, right? That's the whole thing. You used to have these Paramount movies Paramount would release like $10 million budget movies a year. And if one did well, then it would make up for the cost of the other ones, right? Like they would put out these micro budget films, and they need to do that with these movies too. Disney's in the best position to do this because they own ILM and they own all these other things. Like these visual companies and visual effects companies and everything else. And I think DC needs to do the exact same thing. The only DC movie that works is Batman. Reevaluate, yeah. You believe South Park needs to return to older style where the entire season isn't one big continuous story? See, I disagree. I felt that they were at their most biting satire when they could tie it into the larger narrative in the conversation through a story. This season, I like them going back to some of their original roots, but they lost the plot towards the end, man. How would I insert X-Men and Fantastic Four and Deadpool into the MCU? I'm seeing reports. None of this is even remotely confirmed or anything that would suggest that, like, Secret Wars or something, like, you know, what is the Marvel universe is Universe 616. So, you know, they're going to, and the thing is, I've already seen over on the CW that multiverses are fine. People will work with it. So when it comes to the context of this, they're probably going to open up a portal and bring everyone together through a multiverse. And they're already doing this with Spider-Man's animated film Into the Multiverse. That's going to, while not being part of the MCU as a whole, it's going to introduce the concept of multiverse into that particular franchise. So it seems like every DCEU film was given a gigantic budget, like $200 million. It sure feels that way. So, you know, yeah, Game of Thrones spinoffs. I mean, telling the story of Robert's rebellion would be cool, but I don't think they need anything more than that. So Marvel movies is the Ultimate Universe. Okay. Well, what universe is that in? Like, well, okay, whatever. Okay, fine. Whatever universe it is. All right. If it's the Ultimates universe, which isn't 616, again, I'm not too familiar with all that. I'm ancillarily familiar with some of it. Then that's what I would go with. So, okay. All right, what are we looking at here? I think I'm gonna, yeah, I gotta wrap it up. I can hear my baby crying, so I gotta go, and she is freaking out there. Holy crap. So an MCU conceptual artist is not to expect them in there for a while. Yeah, because, well, the deal doesn't go through for 2 years, so the deal won't even be done until like 2020, right? The end of 2019, 2020. So there's no reason to bring them in. There's no reason to even remotely have that. But laying the groundwork right now on Fox's side is the best course of action. I feel that's why Gambit's been delayed. Not only that, but finding a director. And they're trying to tie that into the MCU. I think Deadpool 3 and X-Force are going to basically lay the groundwork for going into the MCU. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen, and that makes a lot of sense. Well, I know that Black Nick Fury is an Ultimate Universe thing. I get that too, but, you know, the Mandarin was a British dude. Come on. There's everything else with that one. So, all right, we're just going to You recommend the Throne of Glass books. I need to read. I need to read a lot. But I will be picking up the Last Jedi book, and then doing that one. I'll probably be doing a Star Wars book club with that, because I want to read more and I want to get through those books. That might be a lot of fun. So let's, yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm going to wrap this up here. We're at an hour anyway. I think it's been good. I like this format where I just jump into it. We go through the stories and then talk afterward. I'll be back on tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be back on tomorrow. It might be a little earlier because I have to run to the airport. So we'll see what's going on with that. If not, then I'll be back on Monday with I think Monday or Tuesday with the live stream. I have family coming into town. So I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day.